I want you to stop for just a moment and think about the last time you walked into a room and completely forgot why you went there, or maybe you were in the middle of a sentence and the word just vanished. It was right there, on the tip of your tongue, and then it was gone. Perhaps you've been reading the same paragraph 3 times because your mind simply won't hold on to what your eyes are seeing. If any of that sounds familiar, I need you to know something very important. You are not alone, and more importantly, what you're experiencing might not be what you think it is. My name is Dr. James Whitmore, and for the past 22 years, I've dedicated my career to the intersection of nutrition, neuroscience, and what I call preventative brain health. I've worked with patients ranging from college students who can't concentrate during exams to 40-year-old professionals who are terrified that what they're experiencing is the beginning of something serious, to retired adults who come to me afraid that their mind is slowly betraying them. And what I've learned, what has genuinely changed the way I practice medicine and the way I live my own life, is that the brain's health is far more connected to our daily habits than most people realize. Not our medication habits, not our supplement habits, our eating habits, our sleeping habits. The small, quiet decisions we make every single day that seem insignificant in the moment but accumulate into something profound over months and years. Today, I want to share something with you that I have spent years refining in clinical practice and observing in research: the connection between certain fruits, consumed at a very specific time of day, and the health of your brain. This isn't a theory. This isn't wishful thinking. The science behind what I'm going to share with you today is backed by decades of neurological research, nutritional biochemistry, and, increasingly, by the direct experiences of the patients I work with who have changed simple habits and watched their cognition, their memory, and their mental clarity genuinely improve. But before we get to the fruits themselves, and yes, we will get very specific, I want you to understand the problem we're actually solving, because the solution only makes sense once you understand the mechanism behind it. When most people think about memory problems, they immediately think of aging. They think of their grandparents. They think of Alzheimer's disease. And while it's absolutely true that cognitive decline becomes more statistically likely as we age, here is what I see in my clinic every single week that most people don't expect. Young people, 30-year-olds, 28-year-olds, people in the prime of their physical lives who are experiencing what I can only describe as premature cognitive fatigue. They're not developing dementia, but they are experiencing real, measurable declines in memory consolidation, in working memory capacity, in the speed at which their brains retrieve stored information. And when I ask them about their lives, the story is almost always the same. They're stressed. They're not sleeping well. They're eating on the run, grabbing processed foods, skipping meals, consuming diets high in refined sugars and low in the very micronutrients their brains are desperately craving. Their bodies are running, as I like to tell my patients, on empty. And the brain, which consumes roughly 20% of all the energy your body produces despite being only about 2% of your body weight, is the first organ to suffer the consequences of that nutritional deprivation. So, what happens inside the brain when we neglect it? The answer lies in understanding what neuroscientists call neuroinflammation. Inflammation is a natural immune response. When your brain detects a threat, it triggers inflammatory pathways to protect itself. In the short term, this is necessary and beneficial. But when the brain is chronically exposed to oxidative stress, caused by poor diet, sleep deprivation, chronic psychological stress, and environmental toxins, that inflammatory response never fully turns off. The brain exists in a state of low-grade, persistent inflammation, and in that state, the very processes that are supposed to keep our neurons healthy and communicating efficiently begin to deteriorate. The synaptic connections between neurons, the literal physical structures through which memories are formed and retrieved, weaken under chronic inflammation. The myelin sheaths that protect our nerve fibers and ensure rapid signal transmission begin to thin. The production of key neurotransmitters like acetylcholine, which is directly involved in learning and memory formation, becomes disrupted, and the brain's remarkable ability to clean itself becomes compromised when we don't sleep well and when we don't give our brains the nutritional raw materials they need. Let me tell you about something that was, for me personally, one of the most exciting scientific discoveries of the past 2 decades, the glymphatic system. In 2013, a team of researchers at the University of Rochester published a landmark paper describing this previously unknown system, a network of channels surrounding the brain's blood vessels that functions essentially as the brain's own waste clearance system. While you sleep, particularly during the deep stages of sleep, the cells of your brain actually shrink slightly, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to flow through these channels and flush out toxic proteins, including beta-amyloid and tau, the same proteins that accumulate abnormally in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease. Read that again. While you sleep, your brain cleans itself. It literally purges the metabolic waste of the day. And if you don't sleep well, if you're chronically sleep-deprived, if you're getting poor quality sleep, if you're not reaching those deep sleep stages, that waste accumulates. Night after night, week after week, the brain becomes increasingly burdened with its own metabolic byproducts. And what does that look like from the outside? It looks like brain fog. It looks like forgetting words. It looks like walking into a room and having no idea why you're there. It looks like the cognitive symptoms that millions of people are experiencing right now and attributing to stress, to aging, or to simply being too busy. This is why the nighttime hours are so critically important for brain health, and this is precisely why what we eat before we go to sleep matters more than most people, and frankly, more than most doctors have traditionally acknowledged. Now, I want to tell you about a pattern I began noticing in my practice about 12 years ago. I was working with a group of patients, all of them experiencing various degrees of cognitive complaints ranging from mild forgetfulness to significant concentration difficulties, and I had begun implementing dietary interventions as part of their treatment protocols. What surprised me wasn't that dietary changes improved their symptoms. I expected that. What surprised me was the degree to which the timing of when they ate certain foods seemed to matter almost as much as what they ate. Patients who incorporated specific fruits into their evening routines, and I want to be very precise here, we're talking about the hour or two before sleep, showed noticeably better outcomes than those who consumed the same fruits earlier in the day. Their sleep quality improved. Their self-reported cognitive clarity in the mornings improved. And over time, their performance on standardized cognitive assessments began to show measurable gains. I started digging into the research to understand why. What I found was that during the nighttime hours, the brain enters a series of biological states that are uniquely receptive to certain nutrients. The glymphatic system, as I mentioned, is most active during deep sleep. But deep sleep itself is influenced by our neurochemistry, specifically by the balance of neurotransmitters and hormones that govern our sleep-wake cycles. And those neurochemical processes, it turns out, can be meaningfully supported or undermined by the foods we eat in the hours before we close our eyes. Here is the mechanism I want you to understand, because it explains everything that follows. When we eat certain nutrient-dense foods in the evening, those nutrients enter our bloodstream during the exact window when our brains are beginning to shift into the repair and consolidation phase of their daily cycle. Antioxidants from food can cross the blood-brain barrier and neutralize the free radicals that drive neuroinflammation. Specific vitamins can support the enzymatic processes involved in neurotransmitter synthesis. Compounds that promote circulation ensure that the brain's blood vessels are delivering adequate oxygen and glucose. And certain compounds, melatonin being perhaps the most well-known but by no means the only one, directly support the quality and architecture of our sleep. The brain doesn't want complexity from us. It wants consistency. It wants the right raw materials delivered at the right time, night after night. And the remarkable thing, The thing that genuinely excites me as a physician is that some of the most powerful sources of those raw materials are not exotic supplements or expensive medical interventions. They're fruits. Ordinary, beautiful, accessible fruits that most of us have eaten our entire lives without realizing the extraordinary potential they carry for our brain health when consumed at the right moment. If you also feel that your memory isn't as strong as it used to be, or you want to learn exactly what to eat and what to take to strengthen your brain naturally, we've left a complete guide in the first link in the description showing how to improve memory, combat mental fatigue, and which foods genuinely help your brain. Or, let me take you through the specific fruits I recommend to my patients, and more importantly, let me explain the science behind why each one works. The first fruit I want to talk about is one that has received perhaps more scientific attention in the context of brain health than any other: the blueberry. And I want to be clear. When I say blueberry, I mean the humble, inexpensive blueberry you can find in any grocery store. You don't need a specialty variety or a premium brand. The power is in the chemistry. Blueberries are extraordinarily rich in a class of flavonoid compounds called anthocyanins, the pigments responsible for their characteristic deep blue-purple color. These compounds are, quite simply, among the most potent antioxidants found in any natural food source, and they have a property that makes them particularly valuable for brain health. They are remarkably effective at crossing the blood-brain barrier, the selective filter that governs what can and cannot enter the brain from the bloodstream. Once inside the brain, anthocyanins do something remarkable. Research has shown that they appear to specifically concentrate in areas of the brain associated with memory and learning, particularly the hippocampus. They protect these neurons from oxidative damage. They reduce neuroinflammation, and they appear to support neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new synaptic connections and strengthen existing ones. When I recommend blueberries to my patients, I suggest a small handful, approximately half a cup, consumed within an hour of their intended sleep time. Not a massive portion. The goal is to deliver a consistent supply of anthocyanins into the bloodstream during the window when the brain begins its nightly repair cycle. Over time, the accumulated effect of this simple habit is, I believe, one of the most underappreciated nutritional strategies in brain health. The second fruit I want to discuss is one that most people associate with Thanksgiving dessert rather than brain medicine: the cherry. Specifically, tart cherries, though sweet varieties carry many of the same benefits. Cherries are one of the very few natural food sources of melatonin, the hormone that governs our circadian rhythm and, critically, the architecture of our sleep. Most people know melatonin as a supplement, and indeed, melatonin supplementation has its place. But there is something qualitatively different about the melatonin delivered through a whole food matrix. When melatonin is consumed alongside the full spectrum of nutrients present in a cherry, including other antioxidants, vitamin C, potassium, and various polyphenols, the body processes it differently than an isolated supplement. The onset is gentler, the effect on sleep architecture is more nuanced, and the accompanying antioxidant compounds provide additional direct benefits to brain tissue. Sleep architecture matters enormously for memory. It's not enough to simply spend hours in bed. The quality of your sleep, specifically the proportion of time you spend in deep, slow-wave sleep and in REM sleep, determines how effectively your brain consolidates the experiences and information of the day into long-term memory. Researchers have found that disrupted sleep architecture, even when total sleep time appears adequate, significantly impairs memory consolidation, and this is where tart cherries become genuinely valuable. Studies have shown that regular consumption of tart cherry juice in the evening meaningfully increases both sleep duration and sleep quality in adults, with effects on slow-wave sleep depth that parallel what we see with some pharmaceutical sleep aids, without the dependency risk or cognitive side effects. I recommend a small serving of fresh or frozen cherries in the evening, or a small glass of tart cherry juice. The key, as with all of these recommendations, is consistency. The benefits build over weeks and months, not overnight. The third fruit I want to discuss is one that most people already eat regularly, but rarely think of in the context of brain health: the banana. Bananas are a nutritional gift for the nighttime brain, and I want to explain why by focusing on three specific compounds they contain. The first is magnesium, a mineral that participates in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the human body, and whose role in brain function is both direct and profound. Magnesium helps regulate the NMDA receptor, one of the key receptors involved in synaptic plasticity and memory formation. Magnesium reduces neuronal excitability, helping the brain transition from the active, high-alertness states of the day toward the calmer neurochemical environment necessary for deep sleep. Many adults are chronically deficient in magnesium without realizing it, and that deficiency manifests in ways that look remarkably like anxiety, poor sleep, and cognitive difficulty. The second relevant compound in bananas is vitamin B6, also known as pyridoxine. Vitamin B6 is an essential cofactor in the synthesis of serotonin and, subsequently, melatonin. The pathway works like this. Tryptophan, an amino acid present in bananas, is converted to serotonin with the help of B6. Serotonin, in turn, is the precursor to melatonin. When we consume a banana in the evening, we are essentially delivering the raw materials for our own natural melatonin production, just at the moment when the pineal gland is beginning to ramp up that production in response to the fading light of day. And the third key component is tryptophan itself. Tryptophan is not just a melatonin precursor, it's also intimately connected to the regulation of mood, stress response, and the quality of our emotional experience of rest. When tryptophan crosses the blood-brain barrier, it participates in processes that help the brain downshift from the alert, reactive states of the day toward the restorative state necessary for deep, high-quality sleep. A medium banana, eaten as an evening snack, delivers all three of these compounds in a form that is bioavailable, gentle on the digestive system, and perfectly timed to support the brain's nighttime chemistry. The fourth fruit I want to discuss is one that has gained significant attention in sleep research over the past decade: the kiwi. Kiwi fruit contains a remarkably broad spectrum of compounds relevant to both sleep quality and brain function. It is one of the few fruits that contain serotonin in a form that appears to be partially bioavailable. More definitively established is kiwi's extraordinarily high vitamin C content and its rich array of antioxidant carotenoids, both of which provide direct protection to brain tissue against oxidative damage. A study published in the Asia-Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition followed adults who consumed 2 kiwi fruit nightly for 4 weeks. The results were striking. Participants fell asleep significantly faster, slept longer, and reported substantially improved sleep quality. For the brain, this matters enormously. Each hour of high-quality sleep is an hour of active memory consolidation, synaptic maintenance, and glymphatic waste clearance. Improving sleep efficiency by even small margins, sustained consistently over weeks and months, produces compounding benefits to cognitive health that extend far beyond what any single supplement can offer. I typically recommend 2 small kiwi fruit eaten approximately 45 minutes to an hour before sleep. They are sweet, satisfying, easy to digest, and their nutritional profile makes them one of the most genuinely powerful foods we can offer our brains before we rest. The fifth fruit I want to discuss is perhaps the most surprising one on this list because most people don't think of it as a nighttime food, or indeed as a fruit at all in the culinary sense. I'm talking about the avocado. Botanically, the avocado is absolutely a fruit. And while I generally caution against large, rich meals close to bedtime, a modest amount of avocado, half of a medium fruit perhaps, consumed as part of a light evening meal or snack carries benefits for brain health that are worth understanding. Avocados are among the richest plant-based sources of monounsaturated fatty acids, particularly oleic acid, the same fatty acid found abundantly in olive oil, which is a cornerstone of the Mediterranean diet, one of the most extensively studied and consistently beneficial dietary patterns for brain health. The brain is approximately 60% fat by dry weight, and the composition of those fats matters. Myelin, the protective sheath around our nerve fibers, requires healthy fats for its maintenance. Beyond their fat content, avocados are a significant source of folate, potassium, and vitamins E and K. Folate participates in the regulation of homocysteine, an amino acid that at elevated levels is associated with increased risk of cognitive decline. Vitamin E is a fat-soluble antioxidant that specifically protects neuronal membranes from oxidative damage, and potassium plays a critical role in maintaining the electrical gradients across neuronal cell membranes that make neural signaling possible. When I recommend avocado as part of an evening brain health routine, I usually suggest pairing it with something else from this list, perhaps with blueberries, or as part of a light meal that includes banana and kiwi. And this brings me to something I want to emphasize, because it's central to everything I've been sharing with you today. The power of these fruits isn't just in their individual nutrient profiles. It's in the habit. It's in the consistency of the practice. The brain responds to what it receives regularly, repeatedly, over extended periods of time. A single evening of blueberries and cherries will not transform your memory. But 60 evenings, 100 evenings, a year of this quiet, consistent practice of nourishing your brain at its most receptive moment? The research suggests, and my clinical experience confirms, that the effects become genuinely meaningful. I have patients in their 50s and 60s who have reversed what they feared was irreversible cognitive decline simply by taking their brain's nighttime nutritional needs seriously. I have young professionals who came to me convinced they were developing some neurological condition, who now experience clear, reliable cognitive function because they addressed the foundational issue. Their brains were inflamed, sleep-deprived, and starved of the nutrients they needed to maintain themselves. And if you want to learn step by step how to strengthen your memory, understand exactly what to eat or take to improve your brain function and fight memory loss, we've left a complete guide in the first link in the description that goes deep into precisely these strategies. I want to return, before I close, to something I mentioned at the beginning. The experience of standing in a room and forgetting why you went there, or losing a word mid-sentence. Because I know that for many people watching this, those experiences aren't just mildly annoying. They're frightening. They represent a loss of something that feels fundamental to who you are, your ability to think clearly, to remember, to be fully present in your own mind. I want you to hear this from me as a physician. Those experiences, in the vast majority of cases, are not signs of inevitable decline. They are signals. They are your brain communicating, in the only language available to it, that it is not getting what it needs, that the inflammation is building, that the sleep quality is insufficient, that the nutritional raw materials for overnight repair are not arriving on schedule. The brain is extraordinarily resilient. It is capable of remarkable adaptation, regeneration, and recovery when we give it the conditions it needs. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize, strengthen connections, and even grow new neurons in certain regions, is not a phenomenon limited to childhood or young adulthood. It continues throughout our lives, and it is powerfully influenced by what we eat, how we sleep, and the consistency of the habits we maintain. The 5 fruits I've shared with you today, blueberries, cherries, bananas, kiwi, and avocado, represent what I consider to be the most evidence-supported, practically accessible, and clinically effective nutritional tools available for supporting the brain's nighttime repair processes. They reduce neuroinflammation. They support the synthesis of melatonin and serotonin. They provide antioxidant protection to vulnerable neural tissue. They deliver the fatty acids and micronutrients that neuronal membranes require. They enhance sleep architecture, which is the master lever for all downstream cognitive function. And they do all of this not through some exotic pharmaceutical mechanism, but through the simple, ancient, beautiful logic of whole food nutrition. What I want you to take from this documentary is not a prescription, it's a perspective. The perspective that your brain's health is not something that happens to you, it's something you participate in every single day through the choices you make about what you put into your body and when you choose to do it. The hour before sleep is not dead time. It is not a passive transition between the activity of the day and the unconsciousness of night. It is, from your brain's perspective, one of the most important hours of your entire day. It is the window during which you can either support or undermine the extraordinary biological processes that will determine how well you think, remember, learn, and function tomorrow and every day that follows. A small bowl of blueberries, a handful of Tart cherries, a banana, 2 kiwi fruit, half an avocado. These are not miracle cures, but they are, based on everything I have studied and observed, among the most powerful preventative tools available to us for protecting the human brain. The science is clear. The mechanism is understood. What remains is simply the decision to act on it, consistently, night after night, in the quiet moments before sleep, when your brain is listening most closely to what you choose to give it. Because here is the truth I want to leave you with. The most powerful interventions for long-term brain health are not the most expensive or the most complex. They are the most consistent, the most humble, the most human. They happen in ordinary kitchens, in the evening hours, when families are winding down and the day is softening toward rest. They happen when you choose, in that ordinary moment, to give your brain something extraordinary. Small choices, made consistently, in the right moment, add up to something that matters far more than any of us typically give them credit for. If this kind of content resonates with you, if you believe, as I do, that understanding how the body and brain work is one of the most empowering things any of us can do for our health, then I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel. Every week, we go deeper into the science of how nutrition shapes brain function, how lifestyle choices influence cognitive health, and how ordinary people can make evidence-based decisions to protect and strengthen their minds. Subscribe now and join us for everything that's coming next. Your brain will thank you for it.